Hello guys, and welcome to the fourth part of this video series, starting through with Linux Mint and leaving Windows 10 behind. And today we will talk about personalization, navigation, some basic system settings, and also one more thing I wanted to tell you in the last video. My name is John from Linux.org, and we installed our Linux Mint properly in the last videos. Also, we did our very first steps with essential software, but what about the system itself? What about Linux Mint itself? How to use it? How are the folders working? What are the shortcuts? Which could be a great thing to remember. And we start through with our file manager. I guess every one of you knows a file manager, but the file structure is a bit different if we compare it, for example, to Windows. So we have one personal folder. Every user on a Linux machine has its very own personal folder where it can do basically anything a user wants to do. So if you, for example, want to delete the documents folder, this is no problem. You can create some other folders here and so on. Very easy. Almost all shortcuts you already know from Windows Explorer, for example, are also integrated into Nemo. This is this file manager here of Linux Mint, and you can do very cool stuff with it. For example, if we want to go in a folder, we just press double click. If you want to have it as a single click, for example, you can also configure this. There are many configurations in the preferences menu here. If we go to edit here and then select preferences, then we see many different settings we can set. Also, I guess in behavior it is. Here we can change, for example, the single click to open an item and the double click to open an item. And there are so many more file management preferences. I highly recommend you just to go through once. For example, click on a file's name twice to rename it. Could be also great. So if I enable this one and then go to my home folder back again here and then click on this name twice, then we can directly rename it. Here we have our normal view. This is the symbolic view. We have many symbols, which is kind of graphical, but we could also display all folder contents in a table, for example. This is the list view here, and then we have our lists. We have some arrows to open up specific folders if there's anything in here, and then we can also display the contents of this. This could be also very helpful, for example, if you like some more specific file managers like the Midnight Commander. You can get a very similar feeling by going to the list view and then going to view and then hit extra pane, or you could also just press the key F3 and then we have two lists, one on the left side, one on the right side. If you click on one of these sides, you enable it, and then you can control your file movement with these buttons, for example, also with this path, for example. And if we click on the right side, we could also do this stuff here and just leave it like we want. And this is how you can enable such a Midnight Commander feeling. Of course, you can also configure this from the start right on. If you want to, you go to edit, then hit preferences, and then you go to behavior. I guess it is in behavior, yes. And here we can set always start in dual pane view. This is this two list view or dual pane view we have here. And also in views, I can select view new folders using the list view. This is also very good because the file manager remembers in which state you had a folder. For example, if you go into the downloads folder and you always want the symbol view, this is the symbol or the icon view, you can just change it to the icon view, and then if we go back somewhere, we are in our list view, and if I now go back to downloads, then we are back in the icon view because Nemo remembers it for each folder you selected a different view. So this could be also great, and this is kind of a Midnight Commander style. Of course, you can also remove this side here. This is just this icon here, hide the sidebar. bar. Also F9 is a great hotkey for this. And then, yeah, we are similar to a Midnight Commander, just if you want. But yeah, this is basically the same file explorer, but with different settings. So could be very cool to change these settings. Of course, you can also leave it to the default. So I changed the default view to the icon view back again, and the behavior, I revert this always start in dual plane view. And then if I close it and start it again, okay, we are in the list view again. But I guess this is because we turned on the list view before once for this folder. And now if we go back, we are back into the symbol view. So this looks good right now. And then we are back to the beginning of this file manager settings or this file manager view. Also, this file manager has a great search. We can search for documents and folders here, for example. So we can search for files. For example, if I search for i3, and then hit enter, then I get my PDFs here. We edited in the last video, so great to see this, but we can of course also search for some file content. For this, I hit the search documents and folders button again, and then I search for content here. And I search, for example, for Brave browser. And we see there are our PDF files again, because if we open it, there is one Brave browser inside. Here we have it. Okay, so you can also search for content very easily, just right into the file explorer here. Also, which is quite important, we don't have partition letters anymore. So if we, for example, open up the app disks, so this is the disk manager, and we see, for example, okay, now very boring, only one hard disk, only kind of one partition. We see there are no partition letters, so we don't have a drive C anymore. For example, we have only partition 3, or the whole device is called dev SDA3. This is this device. If I click on another section of this hard disk here, I get now the device, for example, dev SDA2 or dev SDA1. So we only have numbers in a hard disk, and this hard disk has also a name. So in this case, this name of this hard disk, we also see it above here, is dev SDA. Dev is always in the name because it's the file description for this device, so you can just kind of ignore it. And SDA is here our real kind of name. This is kind of important to understand. So we don't have any drive letters anymore like C, D, E, F, G, and so on. And also, if you have inserted some USB sticks or DVDs or something like this, you get here a new section where you see all your other devices, which you can very easily access via the sidebar. A very small notice, if we come to paths, we can always copy a complete path of a folder. For example, if I go to my downloads folder, if I click on this path again where we are at the moment here, and then we get the address line, and then this is the full path here. You also see there is no C or also no dev SDA, because Linux mounts it very specific partitions on very specific points, and because we are on our kind of Z drive, so on our root partition, we don't mount it anywhere else. We are just at the very slash to say. If we mounted a USB stick, for example, I can go upwards very, very many times, then we are at the root of our Linux system. Then most of the drives are mounted in media, and then your username, and then there will be a new folder created for your USB stick, for example. But if you don't remember this fact, this is just fine. This is just for additional information. This is it for our file manager. One very quick tip: if you want to create a zip archive, this is very easy done. So we can go, for example, to the downloads. I create a new folder by right click and hit, for example, my new archive. and then I put some files in it. So I just drag and drop them, for example. Also, this is a very cool thing. If you press Ctrl and then you drag and drop something, then you see a little plus icon here. And with this, you copy some files to another location. So very, very cool. Just try to mess around with the Ctrl and the Shift key while dragging and dropping some files. This could be very helpful. And now I copied these both files into this new archive here. Here we have it. And maybe let's change to the icon view here. And now we have, of course, a folder with some files in it. And how to create a zip archive of it? Very easy. We right click on the specific folder and then we click compress here. And then we can define the file name and the file extension. For example, we can choose a zip file, or if you just want to move it around different Linux distributions, also tar.gz is a very good file format, but also zip is very common. So you could just choose zip here. For example, you could also go to other options and send in password, for example, and then create the zip file. And this takes a very little moment. And here we have it, my new zip archive zip, very easy. And if we want to extract it, just right click it and select extract here, very easy. And this is it, how to handle zip files, for example. Let's get to another chapter, and this is the personalization of our desktop. For example, we can very easily change our theme here of this computer. Of course, we can change our background very easily. So just right click on your desktop and then hit change desktop background. And then you see some pre-installed backgrounds you could just enable. For example, if you want a Windows-like desktop, you could just choose the curved one, or yeah, some other things. There are many different backgrounds you could just select and you have a great desktop view, kind of. Okay, so I guess I just leave it to this chalet here, and this is fine for me. Now, how is it with our icons, for example, and our colors? So if I select something, we see we have something blue and yellow folders, but we can change this, of course. So for that, I go to menu and I go to themes. Here in themes, I can change almost everything I want. So for example, I can change everything to a dark theme. Then we have only dark folders here. But of course, we could also change the color. For example, we can go to a kind of more blue color. We can get a green, teal color, and so on, some orange. So this looks like Ubuntu, kind of. Of course, you can change whatever color you want to use. Also, if you want, for example, a bit more traditional style, you can change it to Mint L, for example, or Mint X. This is the very old one. And then you have Linux Mint, how it looked like, 10 years ago. Also very decent, if you ask me. And if this is not enough for you, you can go to advanced settings. Then you can select your very own combination. And if this isn't still enough for you, you can add some additional themes, which can be very specific. I also created some videos, for example, how you install in Windows 11 kind of theme, or Windows 10 or Windows 7 or OS X theme on Cinnamon, or some other very modern themes on Cinnamon. This is the desktop we are on at the moment. Yeah, you can go very specific with this, very cool. But I go back to the Mint Y and the mixed mode with this blue and yellow color. This is it for the theming, but of course we can change our taskbar here. At first we can right click it and, for example, hit move, and then we can just move it to the upward side, or we can move it to the left side, and so on. I right click it again and move it to the downside. But I can also right click it and go to the panel edit mode. And here in the panel edit mode, I can very easily, for example, go to a Windows 11 like layout. So I just drag and drop all these icons or all these elements to the center here, and then we have our start menu and the center. So very, very cool. Also, we can, for example, add some additional applets here. So I right click it and hit applets, and these are very small programs you can add to your taskbar. You can also download a lot of them, 232 of them. And there is a very popular one, for example, the weather here. So I download the weather and I go to manage, and this weather I add to the taskbar, and I just drag and drop it to the very left side. I guess this is how it looks like for Windows 11. I don't know. And then I disable the panel edit mode, and then we have a kind of different Linux Mint experience. And you see, you can personalize almost everything. You can also go to the panel settings, for example, go to the intelligently hide panel mode. So then our panel is now visible, but if we open up an application and we maximize it, then our panel hides itself. So it only hides itself if it really needs to. And if we go back, then we have our panel back. So very, very easily. This is the intelligent hiding, also a very nice feature of Cinnamon if you want to use it. But I personally want to always show the panel. One more thing in the personalization, we also have a great option inside Cinnamon. If we opened up many, many windows here, for example, and we want to get an overview of all windows, of course, we see all open windows here, but there's also a very neat option. This is called hot corners. I go to hot corners and enable the upper left corner here, and then select show all windows. And then if I close it, and if I now go to the top left corner, then I see all open windows, and I can choose between them which window I now want to open. And of course I can close some windows, for example, by going to the X, but also you can just hit the middle click of your mouse or the button of your mouse wheel, and then you can also very easily close some windows. There's much more functionality inside the Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop, but I guess this is okay for an introduction. Our next chapter in this video are some basic system settings. There are many different basic system settings. You get all the system settings inside the system settings app here, and you see it's ordered like in a Mac, I guess. You have a search bar here, and then you can search for different things. What I recommend you is to take a look to the display. Here you can change the resolution, for example, and you can also, if you want to, enable the fractional scaling controls. And with this, you can choose a different monitor scale. But this is kind of experimental. But if you just want to make all the elements a bit bigger, it could be a very great feature to go to font selection. This is the setting here, and then you can scale up the text scaling factor. So for example, if I set it to 1.2, then everything is a bit bigger. Also a great feature if it's a bit too small or too large on your screen. So this is it to the screen settings. Also, we have great sound settings inside Linux Mint. So if you right click the sound applet, then you can also choose some different settings, for example, the output device. Or if you have opened some applications, you can then choose there which application should be at a specific volume. So you can change it right here in the right bottom corner. But of course, if you left click it, then you get a different functionality, the very easy functionality to set the volume, of course, but also to get to the sound settings, and then you can also set any applications. You also recognized, for example, some sounds from Linux Mint itself, for example, the login sound. Yeah, this one, the leaving sound, and the switching workspace, and so on, tiling, snipping windows, and so on. If you don't want these, you can just turn the sounds volume to muted, and then you won't hear any of these sounds anymore. This is it for the sound settings. Also, let's get to the network settings. Here we have our network settings. We can go to network settings here, and this gives us all important information about our current connection, but we can also go to the gear here, and then we can change some IPv4 settings, IPv6 settings, and so on, some security if we have it. Also, we can, if we have Wi-Fi, we can also go to our Wi-Fi settings here and then do some different things. Also, if you have a Wi-Fi module, you see then here on this button an option to create a hotspot for example, your smartphone. If your smartphone should connect to your computer and should get internet via your computer, then there you will find a very easy hotspot functionality inside Linux Mint, of course. Okay, this is it for the network configuration. Of course, you can also import some OpenVPN files or PPT VPN files. Just go to import from file and select it. Then you can very easily import an OpenVPN connection, for example. If you want to import a WireGuard connection, this isn't done graphically at the current time, but there are also instructions. I post you one down in the video description how to install a WireGuard VPN connection for your Linux computer. So this is it for our network settings, and then we want to talk about one last point in this video, and this is we learned how to install software in the last video, but how do we uninstall some software? Very easy. We just go to the specific application we have, for example, transmission. I don't want to have it on my PC, so I want to uninstall it. So I just right click this application and then hit uninstall. So easy. I just click on it and then it takes a moment. Then it asks us the following packages will be removed. This is fine. I hit OK here and then I type in my password and then it's removing the packages here. And this is it. Now transmission isn't installed anymore on our Linux PC. So this is how to install software very quickly on your Linux Mint computer. This was it for this video today. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, because in the next weeks we are uploading the last part of our beginner series for Linux Mint, where we talk about security, privacy, backups, and where to get some further help and instructions. If you don't want to miss this, feel free to ring the bell, and see you in the next one. Bye.